ranking Fortnite POIs from the very worst all the way to the very best. Now, you might be surprised to know that there have been 148 Fortnite POIs over the last 7 years, and there will only be more. For the sake of this video not being 3 hours long, we're going to start with the very worst, skip through the middle, and go to the very top.
Okay, what is it?
Number 148, the worst POI in Fortnite history, in my opinion, is Coral Castle.
Coral Castle, obviously, yes.
Guys, but in my
Cypher
opinion,
hates Coral Castle.
They ever made. Nobody liked landing here in Chapter 2.
I didn't mind it.
A ton of loot, and the loot was also very spread out throughout the POI.
Exactly.
There was also music that played the entire
time.
The
music, though, was kind of calm. You know what I'm saying? It was good. I liked it.
And at the same time,
no, it was not
the POI was in a crater surrounded by water.
Yeah, getting out of there was kind of hard.
You could look into the POI and shoot at you. It was also on the edge of the map, which didn't make it great for rotation. And all the buildings were very awkward in build mode. There was a lot of little openings and craters. It made it very difficult to even fight at the POI. And I'm glad they didn't bring it back for Chapter 2 remake.
But I think Moisty Myers was way worse.
Junk Junction. I mean, Junk Junction? In the name. This POI did not have a lot of loot. It was also on the very, very far edge of the Chapter 1 map. And
it was like on the edge of the map, but Junk Junction, it's trash, but it's legendary at the same time, okay? It's a legendary bad POI.
There wasn't a lot of mobility,
but
you spent a lot of time in the storm if you landed here. The only thing this POI had going for it is that it was a good way to get your metal up, but that was it.
Yeah,
Number 146, we have Grim Gables.
Grim Gables.
Not many people remember this POI, but it was in Chapter 3.
Yeah,
it was
Chapter 3, Season 4, I think.
Nightmares 2022, and it wasn't really there for long. It was just one house with a couple of shacks around it, and there wasn't a lot of loot here. If more than 2 or 3 people landed here, everybody was leaving without any loot.
Was gone,
At 145, we have Rickety Rig.
Rickety Rig, oh my god, dude.
In Chapter 2,
I used to land here, and
it was just a few islands clumped up
just
together
glued up.
Not a lot of
I was a
loot.
newbie back then.
Remember in Chapter 2, Season 3,
to be honest, I didn't mind Rickety Rig.
A lot of POIs were mostly underwater and kind of destroyed. You had weird locations like Rickety Rig, where it was just a few buildings and a few chests to fight over.
Yeah, exactly.
Number 144 and 143 is the Pyramid and Conversion. These are the same
this
POIs
was
in
actually
Chapter 2,
trash.
7 and 8, and the Pyramid was just a pyramid. The problem with these POIs is that it was the only POI to have literally zero materials.
Yeah, exactly.
There was nothing you could farm. There was all these awkward shaped cubes.
Yeah, and it was so hard to fight in there
you couldn't
for some
even
reason.
break, but there was zero mats. So if you landed here, you could only get guns and ammo, but no mats could be obtained unless you...
Actually, this place was cool as a concept. Like, if you could farm stuff and I don't know. It was hard to fight in it.
Got them out of a chest.
I don't know.
On top of
that, it was too big, too complicated. I don't know.
There wasn't a lot of chests to even begin with. The only thing it had going for it was that it was in the center of the map, but that also made it very easy to get third-partied by people who landed at better POIs.
Yeah, valid. Yeah,
At number 142, we have Sludgy Swamp.
It was when they removed the slurp from Slurpy Swamp.
Sludgy Swamp takes everything that's good with Slurpy Swamp and just takes it away.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
The Slurpy Lake that gave you heals over
this
time.
This was one of the worst decisions that Epic Games made.
And most of the barrels that gave you shield were also destroyed.
This was one of the worst.
There was only enough loot for maybe a couple of people, and a lot of people did not land here as a result.
Yeah, exactly.
People were definitely expecting Slurpy Swamp, but
yeah,
were
Sludgy
very
Swamps
disappointed.
was
At 141, we have Colossal Crops, and
oh my god, this was hot garbage.
Design POIs
I mean, like,
ever
wow.
This one was very underwhelming. This was a farm POI, which people usually like.
Nah,
but this is definitely the worst farm POI they ever added. At number 40, we have The Ruins. This was introduced in Chapter 2, Fort Nightmares, after the Authority got blown up.
I think we have better options to be at 140, okay? Like, The Ruins, it was kind of mid, but it doesn't deserve to be at 140, in my opinion. We have a lot of, like, worse places than this. At least include Moisty Myers. Moisty Myers was goddamn garbage, okay?
Itself was pretty good. Definitely not better than the agency, but it was
about
okay.
the ruins.
Once it became the ruins, it just wasn't the same. They removed a bunch of the levels that made the building really fun to fight in. They also removed a lot of the loot, and the only upside to this POI was that Shadow Midas was here, and you could fight him to get his mythic.
And the drum gun
was a nerfed version of the drum gun, which wasn't that good.
But I liked it.
At 139, we got to talk about Moisty Palms.
Moisty Palms.
Okay POI when it came to loot.
I think Moisty Myers was worse.
The buildings were spread out well, and there was a lot of materials to farm up.
palms.
The only issue was that
had something
crouch while in this POI, because it was one of the
Yeah, it
special
would turn
Rift
into
Zone
prop.
POIs from Chapter 1, Season 6, where if you crouched in this POI, you automatically turned into a prop. Sure,
yeah.
this was fun for memes and just fooling around, but in any serious situation when you were actually trying to fight somebody, not being able to crouch without turning into a mailbox was absolutely terrible.
Exactly.
At 138, we have Shady Stilts. This was a unmemorable
Shady Stilts,
POI
Chapter
from
4?
Chapter
Yeah.
4. It was just a few buildings on the side of a mountain. There
Man,
wasn't a lot of loot, and it wasn't a
The whole jungle biome in Chapter 4 was goddamn garbage.
huge POI, and I bet a lot of you probably forgot about this one. At 137, we have Shimmering Shrine. This one came after Shuffled Shrines in Chapter 3.
I
and
got
Shuffled
no idea
Shrines
what
was
is
cool
that.
because you could do puzzles for loot. But then when Shimmering Shrines came around, they
I kinda
removed
remember
all
this,
of that,
but
and they just
I
added
don't know.
Chrome, which made it very bad, and it made it very unmemorable and just hard
Shimmering
to look
Shrines.
at. At 136, we have another Chapter 2, Season 6 POI, Bony Burbs. Again, these
Oh,
buildings
this
suck.
was garbage. Absolute. Oh my. Okay.
There wasn't a
It was
lot
garbage.
to loot here. You couldn't build around these
This was
buildings.
super
it wasn't
garbage.
the worst POI ever, but I think most of the POIs from Chapter 2, Season 6 deserve to be very low
Chapter 2,
on this
Season
list
6,
just because of how they were designed.
it's just-
Now we're going
oh
to
my
move
God.
on to some of the mid POIs. Some of them
Mid
might
POIs,
be
come on.
memorable. Some of them might even be one of your favorite POIs because of
Okay.
nostalgia. But the reality is if we analyze these POIs,
They're
they're just mid. But
Yeah.
now we need to move on to our top 20. The top 20 best
Top 20.
POIs that we've
It
ever
better be
had
good,
in
Cypher.
Fortnite.
It better
Number
be good.
20, we have Sweaty Sands. This one is a
Ah,
classic.
yeah.
It was
Yeah,
a
good
big
start.
POI. It had a ton of loot.
Good
There was
start.
a lot
I
of
love
places
Sweaty
to land.
Sands.
Pro players even split this POI because
Yeah.
of how much loot there was. It was also right next to the water,
place,
making it really
nice
easy
place.
to
I
rotate
like
with
it.
boats. And it wasn't on the edge of the map like the Shark or Coral Castle. It was still
It
closer
was-
towards
yeah.
the center. And number 19,
Exactly.
we have Salty Towers. And
Dude.
most versions
Salty Towers, in my opinion, it's one of the best HUD drops ever. It was small, high action, tall buildings from Tilted.
of Tilted
I liked
Towers
it.
will be on the top of
I
this
liked
list,
it.
but Salty Towers was really cool because
Yeah.
we hadn't had Tilted Towers for a long time. They finally brought it back in Chapter 2, Season 5, where they mixed Salty with Tilted,
Yeah.
two very favorite POIs from a lot of players, and they made a
Yeah,
pretty
this was
decent
hot.
POI
I loved
out of
it.
the
I
two
loved
locations.
it.
Some people were saying, yo, this isn't really Tilted Towers, but it actually took some of the best buildings from Tilted Towers and some of the best ones from Salty and actually
Yeah.
made a pretty decent area with a lot of loot, and it was in the center of the map as well, which made it a big
Exactly.
bonus for landing here.
Yeah,
At number
I loved
18,
it.
we have Eclipse Estate.
Oh,
Chapter
this
4,
was
Season 4
goddamn
was a
great.
great. And it also added 3 really good POIs.
Man,
with
Chapter 4,
3
Season
awesome
4
vaults
was
and bosses to fight for. This POI had a
amazing.
ton of loot and a vault and a boss and a mythic.
And
it
this
in a
place
pretty
was
decent part of the
actually
map.
so
A lot
good.
of people landed here.
I
a lot
loved
of
it.
people fought here. And I remember having some really great memories with the boys dropping here in Chapter 4. At number
Yeah, it was so
17, we
fun.
have The Authority. So
Authority,
it was
yeah,
like the
okay.
agency, but a little bit less cool.
Yeah,
but still awesome.
I can take
it
it.
had a vault, it had a mythic drum gun, it was a nerf
Yeah, I will
version,
take
but
it.
there was still a ton of loot, and it still had the same shape and layout
Yeah.
of the agency, with just
I
a
actually
different
liked it a
name
lot.
and different color.
I
At number
liked it a lot.
16, we have Slurpy Swamp. The thing about
Man,
this POI
good
is
list,
the
by
loot
the way.
isn't
Wow.
that crazy, but the guaranteed shields
Yeah,
and
man.
positioning of this POI
This
make
list
it
is-
really good. You're in
it's
a
good.
decent spot to rotate into mid zone. You're always going to be walking out of this POI with full health, full shield.
Yeah,
no matter
and you could
what.
save
There's a
up
bunch
your
of
minis
slurp
and
trucks
big
and
pots.
slurp containers.
It
And the
would be-
design
yeah.
and layout just make it really
Slurpy
fun
Swamp's
to
one
fight
of the
at.
best
It's
places
one of the
ever.
best POIs from Chapter 2.
Exactly.
And a very memorable POI for a lot of people. And
Exactly.
you can't forget content creators like Laser Beam landing this POI
Oh,
and
yeah, the
winning
glitch,
in the
yeah.
storm without ever leaving. This is obviously before storm sickness was a thing,
Oh
but
my
it made
God.
for some really funny
I
YouTube.
actually tried to do this meme recently. It's not working because of the storm sickness.
Videos. At number 15, we have Lazy Links. Another
Lazy
POI
Links.
they actually brought back
Memorable.
sort of in Chapter 2 Reload.
Very
this was a really
memorable.
solid POI in Chapter
Yeah.
1 Season 5. This is when they added golf carts as well, making rotating out of Lazy
Such a
Links
memorable
very
place,
easy.
but
It
I
was a
don't think
decently
15
sized
is good for
POI.
it.
It was good to look at, good layout. So it just has a lot of good memories. And
To
it's
be
just
honest with you, I think we had better options than Lazy Links. Let
a decent,
the list
solid
go on.
POI.
I will tell
At number
you.
14, we have Greasy Grove. I'm pretty sure this is the first place I ever
Greasy
landed
Grove,
in
yeah,
my
good
first
place.
game
But
of
14,
Fortnite.
I think it's
Chapter
too-
1 POI, pretty
too high
memorable,
for it.
decent loot, decent spot on the map. They also eventually added rifts around this POI, so you could just like rift into
I love Greasy Grove, but I think we could have a better place besides Greasy Grove at this list.
tilted towers or just rotate into the zone. We're not going to talk about Taco
Taco
Time
Time.
in Chapter 1
The
Season 6.
infamous Taco
That doesn't
Time.
count. Okay,
Yeah.
that does not count. This is an all-around great POI, and it deserves to be high on this list. At number 13, we have another version of Tilted Towers, Gotham City. This was a rift zone from Chapter 1 season.
Gotham City was actually one of the coolest ideas ever in gaming history. Okay, in gaming history.
And this one was actually executed very well.
I loved Gotham
City.
City.
Very cool design with a Gotham theme tilted. You also had the infinite glider redeploy while in this POI, the little Batman redeploy, which made it very good for rotating in and out of the POI. And it was a very cool collaboration with DC, bringing Batman into the game and the entire Gotham City. It also had a ton of chests and a lot of loot. I don't think we'll ever see this POI again, but it was definitely a great one. At number 12, we have Neo Tilted. This is another POI added in Season 9 that was iconic.
I like Neo
Tilted. It seems like any version
it.
of Tilted Towers is going to be high on this list. It had the wind tunnel system around it, making it very easy to rotate in and out of. And the super tall buildings as well made it very easy to hold high ground and prevent anybody from kind of rotating in. At number 11, we have Risky Reels. I'm pretty sure we've had a version of Risky Reels in every single chapter of Fortnite.
Besides Chapter 4.
Memorable. The most recent event we
Risky
had
Reels
Ruined Reels
was
basically
one of the best
Risky Reels. And only OGs will remember the hardest quest we ever had in Fortnite,
chests.
searching 7 chests in Risky Reels. That solidified it as an iconic POI. It also had just a really good source of wood and metal. With all those cars there, you were walking out with max metal every single time. It was towards the edge of the map, but there was always decent rotation options around it. And now for our top 10. At number 10, we're putting in Dusty Divot. This was back in Chapter 1, Season 4. Right after the meteor created a huge crater. A lot of people were landing here, obviously, because it was
last year at the season OG. When I landed at this place was actually fire.
Also, these hot blocks that you could eat to kind of move around.
6 or 5 years of being released.
There's a lot of metal to farm over here, and overall, this POI just has a very iconic feel to it. It's also in the center of the map, and it had a decent amount of chests and materials to farm. At number 9, we have Salty Springs. This used to be an unnamed POI in Chapter 1, Season 1, but it was so goated that Epic had to give it a name. It's not a huge POI, but it's in the center of the map, and it was always very contested.
Certainly
People
not in the top 10.
loved landing here, even if there wasn't a lot of chests. It was fun to fight at. It was in the middle of the map, which made it great for rotation. A lot of great memories, a lot of great clips from this area, and that's why it's number 9 on this list. At number 8, we have the Daily Bugle from Chapter 3, Season 1. It was a very cool, well-designed POI with a lot of chests. It was also when they added the Spider-Man Mythic, which is probably one of the best mythics they ever added.
Man, Chapter 3, Season 1 was
all over this POI. They were just kind of like webbed up in bags around the buildings. It was in a pretty decent location, and it was very easy to rotate out of here once you were done looting.
Actually,
there was also
choice
all these spider webs that you could bounce off of to rotate and make plays, which made it very fun to fight at. And the Spider-Man collab will go down as one of the best collabs Fortnite has ever done.
Yeah,
so
to be honest,
this POI deserves to be high on this list.
Yes.
At number 7, we have Mega City.
Mega City, why?
Season 2, the biggest POI they ever dropped.
Yeah, it was cool.
City to explore. The only downside,
to be honest with you, we should replace Salty with Mega City and just throw Salty away from the list, okay?
All the buildings were only accessible from like the
Mega City. I liked it personally.
Top 2, but this POI was insane. So many people landed here. You could rotate on the grind rails. You could redeploy from the top of buildings, from the center building with the dragon head. It was very well designed. It was very pretty to look at. It had a ton of loot. It was in a decent spot on the map. There was also a vault here at one point, so you could get the mythic Havoc shotgun and just get a bunch of loot from it. And once they added the Attack on Titan ODM gear this season, rotating this POI with the ODM gear was so much fun. At number 6, we have Pleasant Park. This one's a bit controversial. I'm not the biggest fan of Pleasant Park, but I'm going to put my bias aside here and say that it's still a very solid and very loved POI.
Pleasant Park is
one
of the,
in the first version of Reload.
To be honest, one of the best POIs ever. It's so memorable. And Pleasant has been in the game like since the day 1. You know what I'm saying?
Great memories landing here. The only thing I have against it is it feels like the buildings are kind of spread out too far. So it kind of makes it seem like there's a lot less loot than there is. But this POI has passed the test of time. I mean, it was there in Chapter 1. It got added back in Chapter 2. It made its way to Reload. There was a Doom version of this POI in Chapter 2, Season 4. It has pretty much been here from the beginning until now, and people still like landing here. And that's why these are high on this list. And now for our top 5. At number 5, we have Paradise Palms.
Yes.
Landing here with
yes,
the
I
boys
love Paradise
every
Palms.
single day in Chapter 1, Season 5.
Paradise
We also
Palms?
had guaranteed rift spawns,
Great.
so even though you were closer to the edge of the map, you could always rotate using the rifts and land right on retail or salty to third party.
Exactly,
People loved landing here. There's a
Paradise
lot of
Palms
loot. It's fun to
created
land on
so
top of the
many
big
good memories
hotel and
for
try
me.
to snipe people who are trying to fly in. And this POI is so loved that Epic decided to make it the center of the new Reload Oasis map. At number 4, we have Stark Industries. Chapter 2, Season 4, one of the best seasons of all time. We had the biggest mid-game update that brought us Stark Industries, the Stark Rifle, as well as some mythic Marvel powers like Iron Man's Unibeam. The POI was elevated on a high ground, literally an island spawned on top of the current island. There was also rifts on the edges, and they had the Iron Man cars, which were the fastest cars in the game, making it very easy to rotate from this POI. Mongrel actually landed here and won FNCS that season because of this POI and how
dominated
powerful
this
it was.
place.
And now at number 3, we have Retail Row.
Retail Row, number 3. Wow. Wow, okay.
Many times, like in Chapter 2 and in
Reload.
All right. It has a lot of different.
To be honest, I love the Retail Row. I have nothing against it.
It's going to go down as one of the best Fortnite POIs.
To be honest with you, I think we could have better choices than Retail for the 3rd place, but still fair.
It's designed very well. It has a lot of loot. It's a pretty big POI with a lot of different areas to land at. And this POI is always contested no matter which map it's on.
Yeah, it's one of the best places
and you can't
ever.
forget the fish that would literally dance with you if you
still
emoted in
exists.
front of it. This is definitely one of my favorite POIs of all time. And I got a lot of wins landing here back in Chapter 1.
Second
and now
POI.
for number 2.
What is
Agency.
A
lot of people are mad because the dog pound made the agency look a lot different, even though the layout is still the same. But I get it. People
Agency,
really love this POI. It was the replacement of Tilted Towers in Chapter 2. It had one of the best mythics, the Midas drum gun.
Agency
it has
still to this day, even dog pound is, to be honest with you, it's very great. The layout is still
cool
the same.
Design and layout, a ton of loot, a vault as well. The henchman, Midas, it's just an instant classic hearing that music when you dropped into the agency for the first time. And now for number 1.
It's Tilted Towers. Spoiler alert, yeah.
I know you guys are not surprised about this, but the number 1 POI of all time is Tilted Towers. This POI is more popular than all the other POIs combined. You ask somebody who's played Fortnite back in 2018 or who just heard about Fortnite but never played to name a Fortnite location, and they're going to say Tilted Towers.
Exactly.
There's a ton of buildings, a ton of loot. It's in the center of the map. 10 plus people land here every single game. It's extremely fun to fight at. There's enough loot for the entire lobby to land here. Some of my best and highest elim games started in Tilted Towers.
You cannot compete with
and in my opinion, there will not be another POI that will ever replace Tilted.
Yes.
I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I know you might not agree with me on these lists, but this is just my personal opinion.
No, great opinions, to be honest.
If you guys think there's a POI that deserves to be higher on this list or lower, let me know in the comments down below.
I think the list was missing Lazy Lake, the Shark, maybe the Grotto. These 3 places I think are, to be honest with you, one of the best places ever. But in general, yeah, the list was pretty good. I loved the list. SYPHERPK's list was really good. But yeah, in my opinion, we were missing like Lazy Lake, the Shark, Grotto, probably somewhere else. I don't know. I can't think of it right now. But guys, thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the next video, and peace out.